Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. You have found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. And that ain't no April Fool joke. So give us a call, why don't you, if you have a question, comment, or concern about wills, trusts, or probate. If you're wondering, how do you beat the high cost of long-term care? Which could, everyone thinks, long-term care means nursing home care, and it doesn't. Obviously, nursing home care is the most expensive thing out there, except for round-the-clock at-home care. There's at-home care that you can, you piece some of that together. It's not as bad, but the most expensive thing, seriously, is if you're trying to replicate what a nursing home does at home, it costs about twice as much. And places like the old Kent Community Hospital, you may remember that, old Kent Community Hospital, their rate sheet says that skilled care is $850 a night. So it's like, that's what we're dealing with here. Now, true, $10,000 to $12,000 a night is $10,000 to $12,000 a month, I should say. That's more common, and there is a lower rate at even at Spectrum Fuller is what they're calling it now, but it's the old Kent Community Hospital. Anyway, even over there, you can get a bed for, I think it's around $550 a night. We'll call it $500. So there it's only $15,000 a month. So you see, it's if you can't afford $25,000, you can get the $15,000 option. How about that? $26,000. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with the long-term care. You think I'm kidding? Ask around, and the prices just keep skyrocketing, just keep jumping up. Inflation is not just at the grocery store or at the gas pump. It's also here, where getting people to work those jobs, getting people to be the caregivers, very, very difficult, and getting worse all the time. And it's no surprise to anybody, I don't think. Okay, so long-term care. Oh, we also deal with real estate. Hey, did you see the good news? Interest rates popping up. Oh, wonderful. 4.5%, 5%, something like that. Yay, hurrah. So we've seen in, a couple of months, interest rates have now doubled from under 2% to over, right around 4.5%. What do you think that's going to do? I was telling you this. Of course, I've been saying this for 10 years, so I'm not much of a prophet. But the interest rates, when interest rates go up, there's no way except for prices to go down. So if you were thinking about selling your house during this great reset and blah, 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 you might still be able to do it, because I think, if you're normal people, back when you bought your house, think about that, when you bought your house, right? One of the things that you based the amount that you could pay on was the monthly payment. And of course, interest rates have very much to do with how much you can afford to pay per month. Obviously, right? Pretty obvious. So, when you were figuring out, well, honey, how much a house can we afford? The question was, what's the monthly payment we can afford? And the monthly payment depends on the interest rate. No surprise with any of that, I hope. Well, so you would think that when interest rates double, then house prices have to go down by half, or at least significantly. Except that Wall Street now is bankrolling people, companies, to snap up single-family homes. That's your competition now. It's not someone else who's trying to find a first home, second home, whatever, or move up or anything like that. Your competition is Wall Street, and Wall Street is rolling in the dough. This pandemic was very bad for middle-class Americans, very bad. But for wealthy folks, very good. Okay, if you could work from home, it was good for you. That's all the numbers are showing that. Wealthy people, wealthy companies got more money. That's the way it is. Okay, they're the ones you're in competition with these days for a house. This is why the house goes on the market for $200,000 and the bids all start at $225,000. Okay, and they fight each other to be the one to buy the house. It becomes an auction, bidding each other up. How did that happen? And the answer is Wall Street. The bankers, the people with money are the ones bidding up the house because they can see the inflation coming. You're experiencing it. It's whacking you right now I mean, if you haven't felt the 2x4 to the back of your head on inflation, well, you haven't filled your gas tank in a while, and you haven't visited the grocery store, right? Now, visit the grocery store, and you may say, well, I got the same box of cereal. It's the same price. Yeah, but the box of cereal has less cereal in it. That's what's going on. And sometimes, this is interesting, I think. Next time you're at the grocery store, right? Whenever you're buying something, especially things that not so much perishable items, but things like garbage bags. That's where I've seen it the most, because those things, or detergent, things like that, right? Things that hang on the shelf for a while. Lots of times you can see the old package that had 100 bags in it and the new package that has 80 bags in it. Well, that's a 20% increase in the price, but the price stays the same. Do you see? You just get 20% less. It's the same way with cereal. But the thing is, with the perishable goods like cereal and stuff like that, it moves off the shelf. It rotates. The stock rotates so quickly, you don't really notice. So you got to look at things like cleaning products. It happens with them. Like I said, garbage bags are very good. It's really kind of shocking how that works. And they've done this before. You see, and this is part of a cycle. Whenever the inflation goes up, they lighten up the items that you get for the same price. And then later on, of course, when inflation eases, then they announce, oh, we're adding 20% more for free. Right? Oh, yay, great. I'm going back to where I was, a couple of years ago. They did that. They did that as well. So this is what's going on. So if you're looking to sell your house, right, is now the time to do it? Well, the interest rates are heading back up. So the people who are trying to buy houses, first-time home buyers, regular folks buying houses to actually live in instead of rent out, right? Live in instead of rent out. Those people have plenty of money. They'll keep bidding them up because with inflation the way it is, where else are you going to put the money? And even though these folks could now put it in, I don't know, bonds or, actually get some interest, now that the interest rates are going up, why not put it in the rental properties? Because the rates of return are, they've gone from unbelievably ridiculously high to now they're just ridiculously high, which is a horrible, horrible thing, it seems like to me. Now, it's great if you've got the money, if you're just investing it, and fine. But think about what it would be if America was a nation of renters. And I'm not knocking anybody who's renting a house. Rent a house if you want to. That's fine by me, okay? But the fact of the matter is that home ownership has been a source of wealth, right? Generational wealth for many, many families. What do immigrants do when they first get here? They rent, and they move the whole family into a 2-bedroom apartment. I've seen this. Well, actually, it was a 3-bedroom apartment. There were about 30 people living there. Well, they weren't supposed to, but they did anyway. But they didn't do it for very long because they pooled all their money and then they bought places, right? This was back in the 80s that I saw this happening. And personal experience. You see it happening, but personal experience. The couple we sold a condo to on land contract, every once in a while you have to go over to collect the money, and it was like, there were a lot of people in there. Anyway, long story short, this is what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with a situation where people are turning us into renters without the hope of buying a house. That's a very bad thing for the middle class. And so just, and everything cycles around. Why am I talking about this when we're talking about estate planning? Because the world is a different place than it used to be. The world is not the same world that we grew up in. I'll talk more about that when we get back. And, of course, the last is business law. The pandemic wiped out a whole generation of businesses. Now, the fact of the matter is that most small businesses are not particularly well run. That's just reality. But people are willing to do it. Because why? Because they want to run their own business, right? And they're doing better than they would working for somebody else. So God bless them. Go ahead. Run your business, even though you're not doing it particularly well. You're making a living for you and your family. You're being responsible. You're providing a needed service. It's all good. There's ways to do it better, which give me a call, 774-2424, area code 616-774-2424. We'll help you do better at your small business. But the fact of the matter is, that a lot of businesses got wiped out in the pandemic, and they're not coming back either. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And, of course, this is the time for you to give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. You can also drop me an email. Did you know that? You could do that, yeah. Drop me an email. That's that electronic mail. David, that's my name, David at davidcarrierlaw.com. David at davidcarrierlaw.com. You can also send me a nastygram if you want to. That's an easy way to do it. But if you like what you're hearing, I like that too. I mean, that's all good. But no, I mean, you want to send me, tell me how stupid I am. I absolutely love this. I got a letter. I get letters. We get letters. And when people really want to be anonymous, they don't email you, right? They send you a letter. And now you're the FBI trying to figure out where did the kidnapper send the letter from, right? But anyway, I get plenty of feedback telling me how dumb I am, which I'm fine with. Yeah, hey, I admit that. What do you want from me? Yeah, okay, I'm stupid. I don't understand anything. I got it. Yes. And some people say, oh, this is all the stuff I write in the newspaper, and on TV. It's like, well, it looks like you didn't even think about that before you did it. Well, 32 years of thinking about this counts for something, I think. But, guilty as charged, right? I mean, I'm not particularly bright. I get that. But what I love, but this, and I get that. Okay, so that's the typical feedback. I'm an idiot. Guilty, like I say, guilty as charged. Ask my brothers and sisters; they'll tell you. I have no problem. But I love this one letter. It was so great because what the guy was saying was, oh, you're not fooling me with your, your persona, or whatever. It's like you're just trying to be down home Dave, or I forget what it was he said exactly. But the whole idea was, this is all a 20 years on the radio and everything. I mean, this is all like a scam, and it was so nice. It was like a change of pace. Plus, here's a guy who's saying you figured this all out. It was such a compliment. You know what I mean? Think about it. It's like, oh yeah, I thought about all this first, and then I did it. Yeah. Like I say, it couldn't be further from the truth, but it was a compliment. Think about it like that. It's like, somebody gave me credit for creating this, and it's like, oh man, that is so nice. So if you want to accuse me of being a Machiavellian guy who figured this all out and did it, I would really like that. That would be wonderful. Thank you. But if you think I'm an idiot, well, that's fine. I mean, join the crowd. Either way. And if you do have a question, then giving us a call, that's a way to do it, 616-774-2424. Or, like I say, drop me the email, write us. That's go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. The address says, we got 4 offices, so any one of you can send it anywhere. It'll eventually, after we have the bomb sniffing dogs take a look at it first, eventually it will get to me. But that guy who sent the anthrax, that did not work, and it's not gonna, because we bioscreen everything before it gets to me. So, we lost a few good paralegals, but hey, can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. I guess that's true. Anyway, if you do have a question, comment, or concern, give us a call. Now, here's what I was saying in the last segment. The world has changed. My dad's, I wasn't here last week. We always like to do this live, and it's live right now, of course. So give us a call, 774-2424, area code 616-774-2424, right? I think we're the only live show today. But anyway, we like to do it live because we like to getting the feedback from folks. Like to keep you updated, not 3 weeks ago or whatever. And last week, I'm sad to say I brought all my equipment, but I just I'm sorry, I just didn't have it in me. My dad's funeral was last Saturday, and 8 kids and 19 grandkids, and I think we're only missing one of them who's overseas, who wasn't at the funeral. And we got the cousins came out and everybody. I mean, it was a very, very, very nice, very, very nice experience. Very, very nice send off for Dad, who touched so many people in his life, and you just can't say enough about the guy. But what was interesting was talking to that next generation, the cousins, and they're all doing well. Don't get me wrong; they were 19 for 19 on grandkids, doing well. But even with the kids who are doing well, the buying a house, we've got a few, I guess 2 or 3 great grandkids now. That whole thing, that has radically changed. Now, I had some inkling of this when they were in college and whatnot, but it's just worse and worse and worse now. Just trying to buy a house, a single-family home, or even not even a single-family, a condo or a townhouse or something like that. We're in a very different place than you and I were when we were buying a house. Think about it. Think about what it was like to buy a house, your first house, right now. Imagine that first house. Try to remember what it was like when you bought the first house. $100,000 house. Millionaires lived in $100,000 houses back then, right? So it wasn't $100,000. It was 50. It was 20. It was 40. It was something like that, right? It was under $100,000. I almost guarantee you. And what was the interest rate you were paying on the house? Now, if like me, you were buying in the 80s, it was 10% up. Most I ever paid was 13.5%. That was on that condo. All the people who moved in. Anyway, but the interest rates were high, but the prices were what they were, right? It wasn't quite so bad, and you could actually do it. And when they offered you a price, right? When they offered a price, they put the price on the thing. You haggled with them a little bit, and you didn't close for a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, right? Because you had to get your financing. It's different now. It's different. Not only are the prices higher, right? Not only are the prices higher, but you're in competition with Wall Street. You're in competition with the wealthy if you want to buy a house, all right? And if you want to buy a house, you gotta pony up more than the asking price, and they're closing on these things not in a month or two. They're closing next week, and they're offering more than the asking price. So remember when you were sweating out getting the appraisal on the house? You put a bid in, and you're hoping to God that the appraisal will come through so you can get your financing. These people are writing checks, and they're writing checks for amounts that there's no comparable values. You can't get a mortgage on the thing. Your kid can't get a mortgage because the price that's being asked is above what the comparable values in the neighborhood are. They can't even get financing. That's the problem that these kids are facing. So what's the solution for it? Well, guess what? We do estate planning. So my thing has always been, see if you remember, number one, I've said a million times, screw the kids. You can't worry about the kids. Don't worry about the kids. Kids not the problem. You're the problem. Well, you're still the problem, right? Problem number one is you. And the problem is not if you die. The problem is if you live. And then how do we make sure you don't go broke while you're doing that, while you're alive? Second is getting caregivers paid. But the third has always been, continues to be, what do I do for the next generation? What do I do for the kids? And when we get back, we'll get into that a little bit more because I really do think that the emphasis properly has shifted. Okay? It's still 1, 2, 3, right? But the importance of providing something for the next generation, we'll talk about that when we get back. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and now's the time for you to give us a call. Area code 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. If you have a question, comment, or concern about wills, trusts, or probate, If you're wondering how to beat the high cost of long-term care, if you like to buy a house, sell a house, do something else with real estate, or start a business, stop a business, or keep that business humming like a top, now's the time to give us a call. 616-774-2424. 616-774, I think I put an extra 24 on there. Anyway, area code 616-774-2424. That's the number to call if you'd like to get your question, comment, or concern on the air. Now, what's going on? As I just mentioned last segment, I had the opportunity this past weekend at my dad's funeral to, and it was really very, very nice. Got to thank the Navy. He's a vet, so they sent the bugler out to play taps and the flag, and it's just, they just do it very, 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 very well at the gravesite. And I did have opportunity to rub elbows with some of the, or pretty much all of the 19 grandkids and some of their spouses, and just talking what's things different, how things going on. And one of the things that came through loud and clear was the idea that the world has changed. The world that we grew up in, you and I grew up in, is not the world as it is today. And we already got an inkling of this, I think, with when our own kids went beyond high school, right? If you went to college or community college or Voc school or whatever, even then, the tuition was crazy. I think we were probably the last generation that could actually work your way through school. And that is how I did most of it. And I think about it, I was at Boston University Law School. I was working full-time as a security guard, 11 to 7. That's what I did. And weekends were great because you got extra, you got double time. And it was just a minimum wage. It was a minimum wage job. I mean, happy to get to work. But that said, as my sister reminded me over the weekend, my third year, she borrowed the money. It was, I used up my, first year I didn't have to pay any student loans. I didn't have any student loans because I could, worked in the summertime. I had enough money to make it. But by the third year, the price had gone up so high. It increased over 50%, compounding every year. It was another 15% on 15% on 15%. So it was much, much higher by my third year. And of course, it's never stopped. And it was actually one of my siblings, one of my sisters, student loans, because I didn't have enough money in my own student loan to cover it. I mean, that's what it was like then. You know what it's like now. It's absolutely absurd. It's insane how much it costs to go to school. It's different. And it's not just different with regard to schooling. It's also different with regard to home ownership. It's also different with regard to starting a business. It's different in a lot of ways. Now, what you hear me preach about here for, 15, 20 years, I don't know, however long I've been doing this, on the radio, in the newspaper, hopefully wherever you look, you can't avoid it. That's my goal. Anyway, when you look around, it's like, hey, don't go broke in long-term care. Long-term care will kill you. Well, it won't kill you, except financially, and eventually you die, and there you go. But the point is, right, long-term care is what breaks middle-class families. I mean, we've seen so many times, over and over again, and it happens so often. It's just the way it is. Especially you go to a rural county where you've had farms that have been they've been in the family. Every generation improves the farm a little bit. Maybe it's a milking parlor. Maybe it's the tiling in the fields. Everyone has passed it along until now, and this is probably 20 years now that this has been going on, 15, 20 years, I don't know, something like that, where one of the oldest generation now needs long-term care, and there goes the farm. So generation after generation, to build up something, to pass it along, to establish the family, gone, just like that, because one of the grandparents had Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or God knows what, right? Winds up in a long-term care situation, boom, everything's gone because the world is changing. So that's where we come in, because people still think it's about how do I leave what I have to my kids, right? After I've used it, because I'm not living for my kids. I understand that 100%. Totally on board with that. But see, here's the thing. Except for long-term care, you would leave a substantial amount to your kids, right? But it gets drained in the long-term care situation. It gets drained by at-home care. It gets drained by assisted living. It gets drained by skilled nursing. This is what happens. And I've always been fine with that, with the idea that I've been okay with, use your money for you and all that. That has always been the focus, and it still is. But this planning that we're doing has been primarily focused on not going broke in long-term care, right? Avoiding nursing home poverty. You've heard me say that a million times. So that you get the level of care that you have earned instead of what you paid for through your taxes, right? That's been the thing. Well, and the kids, leaving something to the kids has always been kind of tail end Charlie. It's like, yeah, if there's something left, we'll do, and we do a lot of work to make sure the kids actually get it. But it has, you know what I mean? It's like, it's important, but it's not that important. Okay, they'll figure it out. I figured it out. You figured it out. Let them figure it out. And especially this past weekend, what it came home to me is you can't figure it out anymore. Okay, you can't deliver enough pizzas. You can't be a security guard long enough. You know what I mean? My dad, he worked 17 years, 2 jobs. Well, you can't do that anymore. It's not enough anymore. Not when Wall Street is bidding up the prices of houses. Not when we got everything else going on, with inflation, at 100% for fuel and for necessities, stuff like that. I mean, it's the highest inflation in 40 years. How the hell are people supposed to do this? Right? And you can't buy a house anymore because Wall Street's buying them. Wall Street's financing that. Right? You can't buy a house anymore. Now what? So my thought is, if we're going to preserve the middle class at all, if we're going to make it possible for your kids to do well, then maybe we ought to be thinking a little bit about them. I've never really accepted that was a good reason for doing planning. I've always said, no, it's about you. It's about what you need. It's about what your spouse needs. And I haven't backed off of that. That's still number one. Number two, still, caregivers get paid. I mean, that's got to happen. But now the emphasis, you might want to say, or I don't know exactly how to put it, but the importance, let's put it that way, of the kids, of the next generation, of doing something for the next generation has changed, okay? Because it's not the case anymore. It was when we grew up. Maybe I'm repeating myself too much. But when we grew up, it was possible to work your way through. It was possible to build this. It still is, okay? It's not crazy to say that you could still do it, but it's not the way it was. Things have really seriously changed. And it just comes home. I'm talking to my own kids. It's not like they didn't work their butts off. I mean, went through, worked their way through, took the loans, all that, Army Ranger, blah, 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 daughter, frontline nurse, son, one in the Army, the other one in doing the, going through law school and doing the estate planning and, flying all over the place, doing litigation at first, It's not like kids aren't working their butts off. They are. But the opportunities are different. And my suggestion is we ought to respond to that. That third thing, leaving it to the kids, more important now than it ever has been, seems like to me. You're listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, the show where the bumper music is almost always better than the show itself. As always, easy to observe, hard to admit, but undeniably true. Too bad. Anyway, give us a call. Why don't you? 774-2424, area code 616-774-2424. So I'm talking about the kids, right? And I don't think that that's a good reason. Well, I guess I'm changing my opinion a little bit. I always say, leaving stuff to the kids. It really should be about you. Well, I think that's true. I haven't backed off of that because if you don't take care of yourself, you'll die broke, and then forget about the kids anyway. There won't be anything for them. And by taking care of yourself, what I'm talking about is long-term care. If we do that correctly, right? If we do the long-term care thing correctly, then there will be leftovers for the kids, and you can help perpetuate the American middle class, which frankly is the greatest engine for good in the whole world. I mean, look around you. I mean, think about what things were like, and just take the last 100 years, right? Right? Who was it that made it possible to beat, the bad guys, Hitler and the Kaiser and all the rest of these people? I mean, who did that? You did that, right? Why did the Soviet Union collapse? Because the American middle class, right? And you can see it happening right now in Ukraine, right? When people lie to you all the time, and this is the threat that we're facing right now. What's going on in Europe, right? What's going on with Russia, right? Why is that so bad? Because they all lie to each other all the time. Okay? And think about it. They paid for all these weapons, right? And so they got machines. And then they said to some guy in some depot somewhere where they parked them, they said, hey, once a week, you got to fill the tires, you got to deflate the tires, you got to exercise this equipment, you got to move it around, right? Well, what does it take to move equipment around? Let's say you got all your tanks and your armored personnel carriers, and you got your infantry fighting vehicles, and you got your command centers, and you got all the rest of the stuff, right? And it's all looking good. It's all lined up there. Wow. Just like Bagram Air Force Base looked like before we turned it over to the bad guys. Rows of Humvees. Oh, it looks beautiful. There it is right there. Okay. That's what they've got. Rows and rows of the finest virtuos, rows and rows of vehicles. And some guy who's in charge of that is supposed to move them around. Well, how the hell do you move those things around? The answer is you got to start the engines. Well, how do you start the engines? The answer is you put gas in the tank and then you start the engines. All right? And now you get a little bit of wear and tear, but at the very least, you've got people to drive them. You got to have somebody driving them around. If you're going to drive them around, you got to have somebody doing that, right? And you got to have gasoline and oil and all the rest of the things that it takes. Oh, and by the way, you got to fix them when they break too, okay? But just to maintain them, you leave a car in a garage, you don't start the engine, you ain't got much of an engine in a couple of years. Well, guess what? Same way if you leave stuff outside and you don't move it around, then as soon as you try to move it around, it breaks down. Okay? That's what you got going on in Russia. So whoever was in charge of the motor pool, who's supposed to move these things around, said, if I don't have to pay people to move these things around, and I don't have to buy the gasoline to move them around, and I don't have to buy the spare parts to fix the things that go broke, I got some extra money. I think I like extra money. I'm going to keep some of that extra money. And so my boss doesn't get pissed at me, and put me in front of the firing squad. I'm going to give him some of the extra money. And the boss upstairs says, oh, look at this, extra money. And I don't want my boss getting mad at me, so I'm going to do some other, and plus he's dipping his hand in the till in other ways. And so I'm going to lie to him and say everything's okay. And by the way, I'm going to throw some money in with his, Christmas borscht or whatever the heck it is. Those little nesting dolls. I'm going to put some money in there instead of one of those dolls. Won't that be great? And that's how it goes up the line. If the lowest guy is lying to you, you can be sure the superior is lying, and the next, and the next, and the next. They say the fish rots from the head. True. Okay? But it bottom up, top down. Everybody's lying to each other, which is why they say, hey, we're going to roll over these guys in 3 days or whatever the thought was. It was all based on lying. It was all based on falsehood. Okay? We recently had a situation like that in America. You got to worry about this stuff where the people who are supposed to be telling you the truth are flat lying to you. Russia, Russia, Russia. It was all a lie from the very start. It's very clear. Even the New York Times and Washington Post are now admitting it was all a lie. And the corrosiveness of a lie, right, is terrible. All right? It's why the Russia, the largest country on earth, right? Landmass anyway. All these weapons and stuff was all a bunch of BS. Okay? And because the soldiers know that they're being lied to, it's not like they've got any fighting spirit, right? Whereas if somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm going to shoot you and blow up your house and stuff, well, now you got a reason for fighting. But why would you fight for the liars? Why would you fight for those guys? Right? That's what's going on in Ukraine. If you wonder, how is it that this little country is beating the snot out of those guys? Well, weapons help, for sure. Weapons help. But, if you look at some of the pictures, it's like the Russian guys are abandoning weapons with ammo still in them and operate, they just want to get the heck out of there because they were lied into it, right? And it's that sort of corruption, and you see it here. What are they lying to you about? Well, it turns out all kinds of things, and you counted on the newspapers at least to tell you the truth, and that's not true either. So what can you do? See, this is the challenge, it seems to me. What can you do? You say, well, I can't run a newspaper. I know, you can't. Probably right? And those guys in D.C., they're so smart. All the rest of it. Well, they're lying to you. I mean, isn't it obvious? And now they're admitting it. It's like they knew 2 years ago about Hunter Biden's laptop. They knew that it implicated Biden. They knew it. Everybody knew it. There was military encryption keys on his laptop. And apparently he's lost 3 or 4 of these. Apparently. And then who knows if that's true? I don't know. I don't know why they'd admit it if it wasn't. And now they're finally admitting stuff like that. Well, that's the corrosiveness, you see? That's what makes it hard, very difficult for this next generation. That's why it's on you to do what you can. What can you do? Well, you can take care of yourself, number one, right? Number one, you can take care of yourself, take care of your spouse, right? You can make sure that the people who work for you, the people who provide care, and I'm talking about long-term care because that's what will break you, right? You've already got Medicare for the rest. You got Social Security, right? This third aspect of it is long-term care. This is what breaks the middle class. Is it intentional? Oh, sure, it's not intentional. Oh, no, it just worked out that way, right? It just worked out that way that the rich get richer. It just worked out that way. Oh, no, there's nothing intentional about it. Okay, believe it if you want. Still, there's things you can do about it. That's what this planning, that's what life planning is about. That's what we've been doing here, right? To perpetuate the middle class because we need you. There's no alternative to you, right? People who keep the faith, people who do the right thing. Very unusual in the history of the world, right? Very necessary. That's the job. That's your job, seems like to me. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And now is the time for you to give us a call at 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. Why, do you ask? Why should we give you a call at that? Well, so that we can get your question, comment, or concern on the air. That's why. A very famous person once said, there will be so much winning, you'll get sick of winning. And, well, we're not sick of it yet, but we have had some significant wins this year so far at the law offices of David Carrier, which, incidentally, people think it's only me. It's there's 8 attorneys and 40-some-odd paralegals. So, there's over 50 folks there to make sure that this stuff gets done. It's not simply, it's not a matter of, oh, jeepers, I hope, how does he find time between the TV and the radio and the newspaper and all the rest of us to get my job done? Obviously, it's not much. Well, there's lots of folks actually working away, making sure that everything does get done. It takes a team. I've done it when it was myself answering the phone and everything else to now where we do have a team, and it really matters. It really makes a big difference. Having people who understand what the mission is, making sure middle-class America doesn't go broke. That's an important thing. And there's only, look, if I could do it another way, I guess I would. But we have the people that we need to get the job done the way the job needs to get done. It's just simple as that. Sure, you can download stuff online, but it's a joke, a sad joke, and unfortunately, call it a scam if you want to. I'll call it a scam. I don't mind. You can get scammed that way, but at least it doesn't cost you very much. Just your house, just your life savings. It's pretty cheap. That's a good deal, ain't it? All I did was lose my house and life savings. But I got a free trust. Yeah, that's excellent. Anyway, the wins. So here's the deal. Like when we take on a Medicaid case, part of what we do, and maybe this is a mystery, but not anymore. Part of what we do are Medicaid applications. So this is not simply a matter of here's a trust or here's a will or blah, 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 and no idea whether or not this stuff works, okay? Like from the very start, we've been doing Medicaid applications. So if we say, look, this is going to preserve your house, this is going to preserve your IRA, this is going to preserve your business, your life savings, all the rest of it, your spouse is going to be fine. There will be leftovers for your kids, right? What if we just said that and said, and here's a bunch of papers that'll make that happen? Who believes that? That sounds like a bunch of BS to me, right? Well, does it actually work? You might be curious. Does this actually work? If somebody actually needs the care, will this work? And part of the, so for 30 years now, part of the deal, I don't know, maybe 27, 28 years for this part of it, we've been doing the Medicaid applications and getting the benefits for our clients. Now you say, but what if they disagree with you? What if the case is denied? So you submit the Medicaid application to the Department of Health and Human Services, which used to be the Family Independence Agency. It's changed its name over the years. But still, you give it to the Medicaid folks, and they don't approve it. What happens then? Well, the answer is we take it on appeal. And we've been very successful with our appeals, and that's what I'm going to brag about in this segment. It's not just a matter. See, if people come to us, this is my theory. If you come to us and say, hey, I need a Medicaid application. My spouse is in long-term care. What can you do for me? And I'll say, well, here's what we can do for you. We can. Now, this is if you didn't do a pre-plan. If you pre-planned with us, then you already know what you can do, and we'll be buttoning it up. Anyway, finishing it. Driving a stake through its heart. We'll be implementing at that point if you did a pre-plan. But an awful lot of folks, I know it's a shocker, but an awful lot of folks have done traditional estate planning, which fails routinely, fails all the time, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Your lawyer knows that when he sells you a trust, and you go ahead and you do that trust, they know it'll fail 96% of the time, 90% of the time. It's a ridiculous percentage most of the time. And I don't mean 51%. I mean 90% of the time. Ask a banker. Ask a life insurance agent. Ask anybody accountant, anybody who knows about this stuff, and they will tell you that trusts fail. And the reason they fail is because you didn't put the stuff in there. Now, we've got that handled, okay? But we get a lot of, and nobody's looking at the long-term care aspects of it either. It's another problem. I did a ladybird deed. Yeah, well, that's why it's failing. Okay. But when we take on a case, so somebody comes to us, and whether we did the plan or not, if we did it, it's a lot easier. But if they didn't, we'll still figure it out, and then we'll say, okay, here's what we can do. Here's what we can save. Here's how much it costs. All right? Do you want to do it or don't you? If you do, wonderful. Then let's get it done. But part of the promise that we make to folks is, if the case is denied for any reason, other than you lied to us, you can't lie to us. You got to tell us the truth, or you got to tell us what's going on. If you hide stuff from us, well, I can't do that. But for any other reason, because we said the law is going to work this way and it doesn't, then we'll take that appeal. We'll take it up on appeal. We'll fight with the supervisor. We'll fight with the administrative law judge. We'll fight with the circuit court. We'll go to the Court of Appeals if we have to. Okay, we'll just take it as far as it goes. That's part of the deal. Okay, this is not extra. This is not, you're going to pay twice as much, 3 times as much, whatever, or I don't know how much you're going to pay. It's just an hourly rate. No, forget about it. You came to us this is my view of the world, and it's what people tell me. You came to us because we're the smart guys. We know, and women, we know how this stuff works. Okay, we've done it before. All right, when your loved one is in long-term care, whether it's your spouse or your mom or dad or whatever, you don't want me to say, oh, yeah, and I think this will work. I kind of hope it'll work. But if it doesn't work, then they're dumb or they got it wrong. Now you got to pay me twice as much to take the appeal. Forget about it. We're taking that on. So if you say to me, hey, I want you to do a Medicaid application, I say, hey, we'll do it. And we can't guarantee the results. We can't do that. But what we can do is guarantee that we will take the appeal just as far as it goes. So that's all by way of setup. And it's very unusual. It's 1 in 200 cases probably that we get denied. But this spring has been last year we didn't have any, where we did appeals or we didn't get the final results of the appeals. And just recently we got 3 of them. One from the Court of Appeals, one from a circuit court, and then finally one from an administrative law judge, where our position was denied. So imagine this. You're going through, you say, you paid all that money to us. It's a fixed fee. We paid all the money to us to do the Medicaid application. And now the case gets denied. Right? And we say, oh, don't worry, we'll fight it for you. And most of the time we work it out at the supervisor level. That's most of them. But sometimes you got to go to the administrative law judge and in Lansing and say, hey, judge, here's what we think it ought to be. And then the administrative law judge says, okay, great, wonderful. Okay, then everybody feels good. But it's like, well, it's been months, and now I've got to put up with this until the administrative law judge. What if the administrative law judge says, no, you're full of baloney. You lose. Well, and I say, no, we've got to take it to circuit court, all right, which is the appeal from and done that. And like I say, just recently we got a decision from, I don't even count the supervisor agreeing with us. That doesn't really count. It's when you get from the administrative law. We just got one. I've mentioned this before. This is where the dad moves in with the kid and widens the bathroom doors, and the administrative law judge says you can't do that. Dad can't pay to have his wheelchair go through the bathroom, which is absurd. And the circuit court said, yeah, that's absurd. Charge on, no problem. Then we had another one where it was the circuit court, where we had to take it to circuit court. The circuit court agreed with us. The administrative law judge didn't. The administrative law judge said, no, the agency was right. And then, so we tell the client, hey, yep, we got to take it to the next step. Took it to the next step, vindication. And then we also got one recently from the Court of Appeals, where the circuit court denied us relief. Circuit court said, no, you're doing it wrong. And so we had to take that to the circuit court. Circuit court said, no, you're doing it right. Says back, 3 judges, 3-0, said, no, you're doing it right. Tells the circuit court judge, hey, get it right now. So, that's, if you wonder, how does this stuff work? That's how it works. Well, for most of the time, 99.5% of the time, things go very smoothly. But in those tough cases, we are not afraid to go toe-to-toe and make sure that what we promised you is what happens. Simple as that. If you have any questions, give me a call, 616-774-2424. You're listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hey, only one microphone here. Anyway, give us a call, 616-774-2424. If you have a question, comment, or concern about estate planning, elder law, real estate, or business law. I want to get to some of the emails. Of course, if you have a question, probably going to be more interesting than this. So give us a call if you, as you wish. Or you can drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. Tell me how dumb I am. I love it. Or like that other guy, tell me how smart I am at ginning all this up on purpose. That'd be even better. So here's the email. DHS sent a letter saying we owe $250,000 for mom's care under waiver program. Can they be sued? Can the DHS be sued? The government? Hardy har har. Aging Resources set my mom up an elderly waiver program so that you get free meals delivered and all kinds of free benefits. Well, true, right? That's what Medicaid is. She passed and then sent a letter saying we need to pay $225,000 back. No one ever told us it was a loan. Plus, they charge a flat fee no matter what. I think they're talking about PACE here, which is a fixed fee. That can't be legal, right? Well, it's absolutely legal. See, here's the thing. The Michigan right now, you only have to worry about this kind of thing, about estate recovery, if you go through probate. That's where estate recovery lives in Michigan. Most other states, so you avoid probate, you've avoided estate recovery. So naturally, we do a number of things to make sure that we don't go through probate. Not because probate itself is so awful horrible, although it is. It's not as bad as everybody thinks, but it's a lot worse than you think. How could that be true? It's worse than you think, but it's not as bad as you think? Well, let me say, it's not the most horrible thing every single time, but it always has the potential for getting there. It's one of those things. You'll survive a car accident. That doesn't mean you want to be in a car accident, right? Oh, look, my airbags worked. I think I'll go crash again next week. No, you don't do that on purpose, even though you survive it. Okay, probate's kind of like that. It's unpleasant. You don't have to do it. Why would you do it? Okay, I say you shouldn't do it. So, but this estate recovery stuff is real, and it's getting worse. And so here's a family, they're very upset now, and they must be going through probate, and so they sent them the letter, hey, guess what? We want our money back. And they're like, well, nobody ever told us you get your money back. Well, they don't have to tell you. It's part of the law. That was ruled on, where they said, look, we put it in the law book, therefore you know about it. And we don't want to hear that you didn't know about it because you're supposed to read the law book. Well, wait a second. That's not real, but it is the way the law works. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's sort of standard. So these folks are out of luck. Just SOL. Sorry about that. Maybe you should have worked with somebody. See, that's the other thing. Oh, this is so easy. You hear that all the time. And then things like this happen. It's like, oh, we were cheated. We were robbed. No, you weren't really. I get that you didn't know what the program entailed. I get that. I understand. I feel sorry for you. But there were ways of finding out. And you got to have some sympathy because, frankly, most attorneys who are doing this stuff, we don't do that. That's what they'll tell you. I'm an estate planner. I don't do that. I don't handle that part of it. Well, why the heck don't you handle that part of it? It just cost me the entire estate. Yeah, well, I don't do that. I didn't say I did, so I'm okay. Which is true. They are okay. They're in the clear. So even if you had an attorney, all right, and you went through this, you probably couldn't sue the attorney either because they didn't tell you. Because they weren't supposed to tell you. They didn't have to tell you because that's not what you hired them for. Are you with me on this? This is how it is. Okay? So when you're on Medicaid, you got to know that if you go through probate, they're coming after your stuff, whatever's left, which is why a lot of emphasis on making sure they don't get it, making sure we don't go through probate. And how long will it be before Michigan joins 43 other states that see this is the deal. Most states don't wait until you go through probate. Most states put the lien on the house right now. Wisconsin does, Minnesota does, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. All these places, people say, oh, my house is protected. Not in 43 states it isn't. They're going to put a lien on it. And then what? And then when you die, they get the house. Or if it sells, they get paid back. Okay, that's the way it is most places. In Michigan, they wait until you die, right? And then if it's in probate, now they come after it. So how long is it going to be before Michigan figures out that they get a hell of a lot more money, and they would, if they put the lien on the house up front instead of waiting for you to go through probate? How long is it going to be? Well, in 2012, they tried it and didn't get through. So they've already tried it. It's one of those perennial things, where they go to what they call enhanced estate recovery. So this is not, right now, the only way you get this letter is if you go through probate. What if you don't go through probate? Well, then they can't, because we avoided probate with the trust and all the rest of the stuff, right? Well, now you don't have to worry about it. So far. Okay? So, if you get the letter saying you owe the money and you're in probate, then you do owe the money. And the fact that they didn't tell you about it up front when you applied for the program, now we'll tell you, and a big part of what we do is making sure it doesn't go through probate. So they don't get the stuff. So the things that and again, this gets back to what I was talking about in the first hour. The world has changed. It's more important now than ever that the middle class provide for their kids. Some sort of inheritance, some sort of step stool, something, right? Because the world is different now than it used to be. You can't work your way through college, and the housing market, you know what that's looking like. It's terrible, okay? So wouldn't it be nice, in a middle-class family if they had an extra, $250,000? Wouldn't that be nice, right? Maybe there's a down payment on a house. Maybe there's a college education. Maybe there's a tuition for a month or two, a semester or two. Okay, think about how much difference that could make if the planning was done correctly, right? But no, we weren't going to download it, or it came free with, I bought a box of Cracker Jack and there was a trust in there, so okay, I guess that works fine. I mean, the degree to which folks are not really focusing on this is really kind of appalling, but, that's what this is all about, right? Have a question, give me a call, 616-774-2424. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And now's the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. We've got Bob on the line. Hello, Bob. Welcome to the David Carrier Show.
David, good morning. How are you?
Perking and working and having a ball.
Great. Hey, a couple quick questions if you've got a moment.
No, sorry, I got no time.
I own
Goodbye.
my own home. All right, see you later. Have a good day.
Wow, wait a second.
I own my home.
Yes.
I was married to a longtime girlfriend about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and she's not on the deed to our home. We have some 401ks, some savings. Everything's paid off. I'm wondering, listening to you, if she should be on the deed or we should be doing this life plan and leave her off the deed for future planning, for future protection, I guess I should say.
Right. So the way I would look at it is, depends on what you've got, right? But generally speaking, when folks have a house, you don't do this kind of thing. You don't do any planning, and then the house goes through probate. And now, if you needed long-term care, and there's 70% chance, if you're 65, government says 70% chance you will need long-term care, then there goes the house, right? And the 401k. In fact, I was just bragging on us winning a Court of Appeals case. This was a situation where you and your spouse each have a 401k. Is that right?
No, only I do.
Okay. Does she have an IRA at all?
She's self-employed.
Got it.
I'm sorry?
An IRA or anything like that? Individual retirement?
Just a physical 401k, and then we've got some savings in the bank as well.
Got it. So let's say you're the one.
And then some buried in the backyard.
Shh. I didn't hear that. Anyway, so you've got.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So you've got that you gave away 6 years ago. I understand. So anyway, you've got you got the 401k. You're the one who gets loopy, right? And there's a there's a significant amount of money in the IRA. Now, what we always could do was cash it in, pay the income tax on it, and then preserve the rest for the spouse. About 4 or 5 years ago, what we did was start to move the IRA, the 401k, 457, whatever it was, move that from one spouse to the other. This is the thing that the circuit court said we couldn't do, and the Court of Appeals just came out with its opinion a few weeks ago, said yes, you can. There's no problem with it. Sent it back to say, hey, just do this. And that was that was one of our wins. So by doing the life plan, what you're doing, part of that is to say, hey, what if I need to move an IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever it is, from one spouse to the other? Can I do that? And because you're married, the answer is yes. Yes, we can. We can't do it to someone you're not married to, but to your spouse, absolutely we can. Now, with the house, when you've got and let's talk about moving things up, right? See, right now, the house is yours. If she's running a business and there's liability from the business, so I don't know what business she's in, but if you're dealing with the general public, I mean, general public will do freaking anything, right? Sue you for any reason. And so,
Right.
the house,
It's a housekeeping business. Just to
oh,
be clear.
okay, okay. So yeah, so you know, you're bonded and insured, so liability is low. It's not like selling cars or something. So okay, but the concern is still, if you have a business, do you want the liability of one spouse to attack the house? Now the thing is, when you're married in Michigan and you own a house together, we call that tenants by the entirety. And what it means is that you can't take the house from a married couple. So if you do something, you get sued, and it's in your name only, now they can take the house away from you, okay? If she does something, right, then it's in your name only, they cannot take the house away from you, all right? But you die, and now the house goes through probate. House got to go through probate, and that's where estate recovery lives. So if you needed long-term care, and now it goes through probate to get to your spouse, now you get problems. So the way I would, are you getting the idea that there's many ways to do this? So what we would first, the suggestion would be, right, what you first do is you do tenants by the entirety, okay? So we've got that done. Then you and your wife do a joint trust where you put the money and the house and whatever else into the joint estate plan, to the life plan. And then that way, it's still protected, because the way we set this up, you're not giving up. See, right now you don't have the protection that a married couple should have. You don't have any asset protection. You can get it by married, right? So you can get it by married couple owning the house together, tenants by the entirety. That's a way to do it by law, right? And if one of you does wind up having liability, they can't get the house until you sell it. And then they can get the person whose liability it was, they can get their half of the money. Well, what if we could defeat all creditors? And that's what we're doing using the trust. We're going to we're going to prevent any creditor from ever getting it, not just when you sell it. And the other advantage of doing the life plan is it also protects it from long-term care. Now, it's a 5-year process. You know, that's why we encourage people to get the process underway as soon as possible, because as soon as good things start happening, as soon as you get this done, right? But that would be the thing. So we're going to preserve the IRA, we're going 401k, we're going to preserve the house, we're going to preserve the life savings. Against what? Against a car accident. Again, you know, and now they changed the law on the car accident, so now more liability for folks. Okay, good. We need to do a little more planning for that, right? This will help in that way. But also, the thing that breaks people is long-term care. And so now if I take the house off the table, if I take the life savings off the table, I still have the 401k. Because here's the thing. I cannot put a 401k into a trust without triggering the income tax. If I put the IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever it is, if I put that into the protection trust, what we call the root cellar trust, if I do that, I'm going to trigger the income tax. So I'm not going to do that. And you say, well, wait a second. Most of my money is in the 401k, which is pretty typical for folks. I know. But I'm not going to lose it either because of the way we set this up. I'm going to move that IRA when the time comes. Not now. Not now. When the time comes, I can move it to the non-Medicaid spouse, to the one who doesn't need the long-term care, and then preserve all of it, include, you know, free from tax and all the rest. There's a way to do that. And like I say, that's the thing we were kind of challenged. Well, kind of. We were absolutely challenged on. Oh, you can't. Most other counties accepted. Kent County didn't. They said, oh, it's bad and terrible that you're doing this. So we went to the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals said, what are you guys complaining about? It's fine. I summarize. Okay. It's not exactly how it works, but, you know. And so now we're doing them again because, you know, we were right the whole time. The thing that's frustrating is there's a couple years there where we had to say to people, look, the only way we can save the IRA is by paying the income tax on it, because I got this decision out of the court, you know, at the local level. You know, they're not playing ball here. We think they should, but they're not. Well, now we got the Court of Appeals backing us up, so now we're back in business as far as that goes. Again, preserving what you have without paying the income tax. So if Bob needs long-term care, Bob gets his long-term care, and we're not sacrificing the 401k. Instead, we're going to transfer that to your spouse, right? And then we're not done yet. I'm not going into all what happens next. But we are going to preserve it, and we're not going to be paying the big lump sum of income tax and all the rest of this. So really, the thing to do, I would suggest, come to a workshop. We're doing them all the time, right? And it's an hour or two.
Right. Now, would you suggest that over just coming into the office?
We'll do it either way you like. If you're a faithful listener, then you know what I'm yakking about. What the workshop does is it says it's a hour or two, usually 2 hours, and we're answering questions and we're laying this stuff out in detail. Okay, but if you kind of get the idea, it's like, look, I'd rather not go broke in the nursing home. We can show you how one-on-one we can get it done more quickly. So it's really up to you. We're happy to have you come to the workshop. We're happy to do what we call an IEP, initial estate planning meeting. You say, look, I kind of get the idea, but I need to have it confirmed and show me how this would work in our family situation. More than happy to do that. On the other hand, if you want to and you're like, well, let me see what these guys are all about, well, come to a workshop. I mean, either way, you're going to get the same information. We all say the same thing because there's a way that this works repeatably. We've done it for thousands of families. We've done the Medicaid applications for thousands. This is not experimental stuff. It works. You just have to, work it correctly. And so whether you come to the workshop or if you want to get it done more quickly, just call up. It's 800-317-2812, 800-317-2812. Just call the office. We'll get you in. Tell them that you heard me on the radio and that you want me, and then I'll meet with you. How about that? Otherwise, you're going to get one of the other attorneys.
Love it.
Is that okay,
Nope,
Bob?
I love it.
Okay, great.
David, I appreciate all your time. Thank you. Love your show.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. You're listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now, that song, it says, you're sweet like a honeybee. But wait a second. Are honeybees sweet? I don't know. The honey's sweet, but not the honeybee. Give me a break. Anyway, you're listening to The David Carrier Show, the show where we answer the deep questions. Is a honeybee sweet? But like a honeybee sting, you're going to leave me in pain. Well, I get that part. That part I have no problem with. Certainly I've been on the receiving end of that one. But I don't know. And anyway, it makes a good song. So I stop complaining. We've got Janet on the line. Janet, welcome to The David Carrier Show. How can I help?
If you have absolutely no assets, no stocks, no bonds, no 401k, no car, and you have a house and your adult child is living in your house and has for over 10 years, do you still need a trust?
I say yes. And here's why I say so. Well, what's the value of the house? I mean, is it a significant value? I mean, if it's a $10,000, crack shack in a bad neighborhood,
I don't know.
Who cares? But if there's significant
it's a low income neighborhood.
Okay. So here's what we would say in a situation like that. So your kid's been living in your house with you for the last 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's a thing called the child caretaker exception, okay? And child caretaker, caregiver, that's really what we should say. Caretaker is what they do to the house. Caregiver is what they do for you. If the child resides with the parent for 2 years or more, and provides care that keeps the parent out of a long-term care situation, right? Then the parent can deed the house to the child, can actually give the house to the child, and it's not divestment, it's A-OK. So there's no problem with that for Medicaid purposes, okay? So you would be able to give the house to the child. There is a way to do that. It has to be documented and all the rest of the stuff. But when it is, you can do that. So, and you would, and generally speaking, we would use, for you, I would suggest that the powers of attorney are more important probably than the trust. But you still want to do the trust because probate court is happy to set aside powers of attorney, very reluctant to set aside trusts. Very different situation when you do a trust versus powers of attorney. So you might be able to get it done using just the powers of attorney, but doing the trust would really be the better bet. It seems like to me. So even if you've got nothing, but you have a house and you don't want the kid thrown out in the snow, then it's. And the thing is, most of the time when we have families where they qualify, the kids actually qualify for the child caregiver exception, like I just mentioned, because they have cared for the parent for more than 2 years. We generally don't use it. I mean, we could use it, and sometimes we do, but generally it's one of those things you like to have as the second or the third strategy on the table. You know what I mean? I mean, we'd rather keep you in control of the house. Situations change sometimes. I would not want to have a situation where we gave the house to the kid, and it's okay because we get the child caregiver exception. You still qualify for Medicaid, but now the kid evicts you. I mean, we've had that happen. Not often. I mean, we haven't had a client do it, but you've seen it. I've seen it happen. Where the kids, once you deed the house over to them, well, now it's their house, right? Legally, it's their house, and sometimes, given the relation, they sell it or they do things that you wouldn't want them to do. So, like I say, that child caregiver exception, it's out there, it's useful, right? But I'm not going to pull the trigger on it right away. I'm going to set things up so that if I had to preserve the house rather than sell it and give the money to the nursing home or long-term care facility. So, am I answering your question, Janet? Is that?
Yes. I have 4 of my children are on Medicaid because of accidents that have happened.
Are they on Social Security
they're
disability as
disabled.
well? Are they on Social Security disability?
Yes.
Okay, so there's another exception there where if you have a child who's on Social Security disability, then you can transfer the homestead to the child who's on Social Security disability, and it's not divestment. All right? Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to warn you. I mean, this is where I'm talking about. You layer your strategies, right? So you get things set up so that you could do this stuff. But, Janet, I don't want anyone else having control over your house except Janet. Janet's house. I'm not going to give up Janet's house to somebody else until that is the best alternative with no downsides. And the downside of giving the house to the kid is now the house now is subject to the kid's liabilities, right? What if in this accident they got a judgment against them for whatever, and now you give them the house, whoops, there goes the house. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let that happen. Okay? So you do have options. You have options. So you don't have to put the kid out in the gutter in the snow and the whatever, okay? But I don't want the kid doing that to you. And the worst is, this is the absolute worst, is when you see the parent gives the house to the kid, right? And then it's not even the kid doing it. It's the kid's guardian or conservator appointed by the probate court who does it, who sells the house because now the kid needs additional care. And you're like, wait a second, you're selling the house out from under me. Yeah, too bad. You gave it to the kid, it's the kid's house now. Or the kid gets sued or something, there are ways to do this thoughtfully on purpose. okay, so that you can do what you want. You can make sure that there will always be a roof over the kid's head, right? You can do that without endangering your own eligibility, without endangering their eligibility, and without putting anyone else in control. You're in control. Janet is in control. Janet's plan is the plan. Does that make sense? Because,
Yes.
are you opposed to being in control over your house? Is that a bad idea?
No, I want to be in control.
Absolutely. Are you opposed to getting the benefits you've earned? That's what we're talking about. That's what planning does for you. Okay? You've been listening to just give us a call. It's a free consultation. All right? So just give us a call at the office. We'll get you in. I'll lay it all out for you. No problem. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney.